Okay, today, as we're talking about vocabulary, we are going to read a book called Ada Twist, Scientist. And this book is a really great book to introduce us to science. And one of the words that you're going to hear a lot in this book is the word hypothesis. Now, you may have heard this word before, and I am going to read what it says just on this page. I want you to think about it, and then we'll turn and talk to our partners about it. So right here, we're going to listen carefully and see if you can figure out what the word means. Ada did research to learn all she could of smelling and smells, both the stinky and good. One hypothesis Ada thought could be true. The terrible stink came from Dad's cabbage stew. She tested and tested, but soon Ada knew it was time to come up with hypothesis 2. All right, so think about how hypothesis was used on that page. Turn to your neighbor and share what you think that definition of hypothesis is. And I want you to come up with something that you both agree on and be prepared to share with the class if I draw your name from our sticks. All right? Okay. So we're going to go on to the dictionary definition, and let's see what this says. The dictionary definition says, a hypothesis is a suggested solution for an unexplained occurrence that does not fit into current accepted scientific theory. Wow. Okay, there are a lot of big words in that, but it's really just a fancy way of saying a hypothesis is an educated guess, or a guess that's based on information that you already have and you already know, which is what you told me after you had turned to share with your and shared with your partner. What I want you to do right now is let's just say that word 3 times. I kind of love this word. Hypothesis, hypothesis, hypothesis. Lots of S's in that, right? It's a little bit like a snake. But I want you to think about back to Ada and her hypothesis, her first hypothesis, or her first guess about what was making a really terrible smell was that it was her dad's cabbage stew. So that fits with our hypothesis and our understanding of a hypothesis, an educated guess. So she took what she knew around her and thought, well, it really could be that because that probably smells really terrible. Alrighty, let's look at this last page. I want you to look at these 2 sentences. These are 2 different forms of the word that are very similar. So the first one is hypothesis. Ada tested her hypothesis and found she was not correct. And the second word is hypotheses. However, Ada still had several more hypotheses she wanted to check. I want you to look at those 2 words. First of all, I want you to think about, well, what is different? What's the difference between those 2 words when you're looking at them? And if you came up with the difference is that one has an I and one has an E, you are correct. Now I want you to turn and talk to your neighbor and make a guess or a hypothesis about what you think is the correct meaning of these 2 words that are so similar and yet slightly different. All right, and now that you've shared and we've talked about it, you should have come up with, yes, one of them, when it's hypothesis, that's just one hypothesis or one guess. Hypotheses is the plural version of that, and that means more than one guess or more than one hypothesis. So she had several more hypotheses or several more guesses that she wanted to experiment and test and find out if those were them. Alrighty, that's the end of our vocabulary lesson for today.